This is MSNBC's coverage of the New Hampshire primaries. Half of the field has been decided. John McCain is our projected winner after a hard-fought battle in which he replaced the then-leader Mitt Romney in the polls, the hard numbers, with 15% of the precincts reporting, with heavy turnout for the Republicans, even heavier for the Democrats. 37% to Romney's 28 and Huckabee's 12. And the second-tier candidates, including Rudy Giuliani and Ron Paul, battling for the scraps there at around 10% or less. The Democrats, characterized by NBC News and the decision desk as a tight race, too close to call. Going against some of the late polling, the one advisory as you watch this at too close to call in a virtual tie, the difference of less than 2,000 votes at 16%, is that much of the expectation from the Obama camp was that the younger Democratic voters would be showing up later on in the day. So that may or may not prove to be the case, but that's the argument at this point. What we have in terms of hard numbers includes exit polling. MSNBC's Nora O'Donnell tracking the exit polling with some insight back into that Republican decision that has already been determined. Why McCain has won. Nora?
And that's right. It was a very big win for John McCain, and we've been crunching the numbers to find out just why he won. You can tell from the exit polls tonight what made the difference. He was the leader on voter judgments about his ability to handle dangerous international situations. Almost half of GOP voters cited either the war in Iraq or terrorism as the most important issue facing the country, and McCain led by a large margin among both of those groups of voters. Now, of the Republican voters who said the war in Iraq was the top issue, McCain beat Romney 2-1. And among those who mentioned terrorism as their top concern, again, McCain took those voters with a percentage of 43 to Romney's 24%. We also saw a big move to McCain with voters today who said he was best able to become the commander-in-chief. And, of course, one of the reasons we saw that Mitt Romney did not do better with voters, because they say he ran the most unfair campaign. See that? 30% right there. Also, McCain's success here was made possible by the presence of independent voters as well. About 4 in 10 of GOP voters were independents, and he won that group by a sizable margin. And Keith, I heard you talking about this earlier with David Gregory. What about those registered Republicans? Well, he just edged out Mitt Romney among the Republicans. It was very, very close, but McCain did win, according to these exit polls, among Republicans as well, much larger when it came to those independents. They helped make the big difference.
Exactly what we saw last week in Iowa with Barack Obama over Hillary Clinton. The victory was within the party, but also expanded by those independents. Nora O'Donnell tracking the exit polls for us. All right, let's hit on that one point here. The dangerous international situation voter with Rachel Maddow, who is here in New York, and Pat Buchanan, who is in New Hampshire. All right, Pat, interpret these numbers, and then Rachel, go ahead and reinterpret them. On Iraq, he's a 2-1 favorite over Romney on handling Iraq. On terror, McCain was about 1 3/4 to 1 favorite over Romney.
Well, that's very bad news for Rudy Giuliani, who would be relying on the terrorism issue in Florida, which is his last chance state. This was an outstanding victory for John McCain. It's a decisive victory, and I think it carries him forward into Michigan and into South Carolina, where Huckabee is clearly the front runner right now. Romney has 2 second-place finishes and 1 win out in Iowa, Keith. And Michigan becomes very important because I don't think Romney can win South Carolina. But this is a wide-open race still where you get, if they all get to February 5th, I think it's really undecided. You notice how Huckabee was enthusiastic about McCain's win. I think that's because he feels that in the longer run, McCain can be beaten out there in Republican primaries, but it might be much tougher with Mitt Romney. But Romney's got to start looking for his first win.
What I think is interesting, Pat, is that, you know, a lot of the times these things are decided not necessarily on what the largest number of voters think, but which voters feel something so intensely that they can be always counted on to turn out and vote in great numbers on it. Now, if Republican voters are going to make their primary decisions based on the war and on terrorism and not on domestic issues, that's very bad for Mike Huckabee. That's very bad for Mitt Romney. It's good for both McCain and Giuliani in their respective states. But heading heading into Michigan, I mean, looking at the Michigan polls right now, the Detroit News has Romney up by 2, MRG has McCain up by 3, and Rasmussen has Huckabee up by 1. So heading into Michigan, it's as wide open as it can possibly be. It may come down to what Republican voters think is the most important issue, not which candidate they think has more negative ads or something.
Right, and in Michigan, of course, you got your economic troubles up there. It's one of the few states that really has seen unemployment rise. But I will say this, if Republicans are thinking about foreign policy and defense, they're going to go now, I think, for McCain. And this suggests the kind of presidential campaign McCain would run, which would be very hardline against the Democrats who want to get out of Iraq. That would be his key issue. And the country, of course, is very much in favor of not losing in Iraq, but getting out of Iraq. But this thing is really tossed up in the air. But there's no question, John McCain is back, and he is a serious candidate for the nomination.
What I think is
it's a three-way race. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what I think is going to be really interesting to watch is if it does come down to the war and terrorism being the issue for Republican voters, how are Giuliani and McCain going to run against each other? McCain is running essentially as the guy who's been around for a long time, who has personal military experience. Giuliani is running as the mayor of 9/11, but they've both all but 100% endorsed President Bush's way of dealing with both terrorism and the war. So if they can't be change candidates on that issue.
On that face-off now, I would give it to McCain for this reason. One, the victory in New Hampshire, the momentum going into South Carolina, and also the very fact that I think McCain on defense issues, foreign policy issues, is very, very strong, whereas Giuliani is a terrorism issue man almost alone. So if it comes down to a battle on those issues, the two will split the vote, but I would bet McCain would come in higher than Rudy Giuliani.
Well, we'll have to see it, but I think those two fighting is going to be fun to watch.
All right, Pat Buchanan. All right, Rachel Maddow. Of course, the one caveat with all of that is that the #1 polling, according to the #1 issue, according to the exit polling for Republicans in New Hampshire, like the #1 issue for Democrats in New Hampshire, not Iraq, not counterterrorism, not immigration, not George Bush's presidency, but in fact the economy. So we'll see how that continues, this idea of 52-card pickup in the Republican side of events. As we mentioned, although McCain is the projected winner on the Republican side, the Democratic race is still too close to call between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, the two senators, with Hillary Clinton in the numerical lead with 17% of the vote in. As you can read the numbers, I'm just being redundant right here, but that's it. Too close to call. So those who were expecting some sort of continuing wave from Iowa for Barack Obama, that has not happened. At least it has not happened yet. There is no projection at this point, and we don't know when there will be one.